also recognize Mr. Hoffer with the Planning Commission.
Turn your mic on, Rodney.
Excuse me, I need to do it myself, don't I? I figured I was talking loud enough.
You were.
It won't go to the recording, though.
But we're glad to have you here because you're a part of this as Planning Commission, along with this commission, you know. Our purpose tonight is to, first of all, look at what regulations that we have concerning RVs and campers and the policy. We'll do that in the old business. In the new business, we'll discuss the definition and then how we go ahead in the future. At this time, I would ask that if we have any visitors that would like to address this committee, you have 3 minutes at this time. Seeing none, we'll proceed on into the old business. I'd first like to bring before you here, back in July 2021 of 22, the previous commission made a resolution to amend Article 5 of the Hammond County regulations to include recreational vehicles. After that was looked at, Mayor Britton on August 3rd issued a letter to rescinding that resolution because it had a conflict with the 2018 building codes. And just to everybody to understand, the campers are addressed under the 2018 codes, that they are not allowed. So we're going to open the floor up for discussion. Anyone that wishes to speak on the subject.
Yeah, that's when this came up, it was voted on the resolution that we'd change the wording on a camper where it could be in a recreational motor home, that if a camper had water, electric, and proper sewer, that they could live in it. It came back in August in a resolution, and people voted for it before. It's all in here. They come back and voted against it. So that resolution that was voted on before that passed, it was rescinded. So we're back to phase 1 right now. We're right back where we started tonight. And at the time, I spoke up on it, and 2 or 3 more people spoke up on it. There's people out there that's having hard luck times. They got nowhere else to live. And my opinion, this is mine, it's better for somebody to live in a camper trailer than it is a cardboard box. That's my bottom line. And if they go to a camper, I've got no problem with them living in a camper temporarily. You got to find out what temporary means. How long is that? If they can live in a camper temporary, providing, I don't care if they've got electricity, I don't care if they've got water, but I do have a problem with the sewer. And if you got, and I can show you in 15 minutes, a camper right there, right out on David Crockett Parkway, right across from Buffalo Trail Western Store, that the septic system was put in with a 55-gallon drum. I went up there 2 years ago. The guy's got a single-wide motor home. He's got 3 campers around the side of his house and back of his house. He's got electric drop cords running to every one of them. His kids and grandkids was living in them, staying in them. And I walked in the backyard and stepped in. See, I just went shoo, shoo, shoo. Stuff was right on top of the ground. I got a big problem with that. But sewage running on top of the ground is not a problem with the Planning Commission. Y'all can't do anything about it. The state is over that. The state is over septic systems. They're over, if you've got a problem with your next door neighbors in his house, if his sewage running on top of the ground, you can call planning all you want to. Y'all on it. And they can't do anything about it. It's a state function. it's a health department function, is where it's at, so. My opinion, I got no problem living in a camper as long as they do it temporary, but you gotta set up what temporary is. Go back to a camper, I've got a camper on my place, I used it when I lived on North Chucky River 9 months out of the year, for about 4 years. Had a power generator, I done my generator, I took a bath in the North Chucky River every night till it got October, and I like I froze to death when I took the water, so that's when I moved back to town. But I brought my camper in and I put it right beside my barn. And I've got a concession stand there that's got a septic tank in it. I put my camper right beside of it. I had a line running to my septic tank. My electric come to my camper. My water was just a spigot. I did all I had to do was hold my hose up. I lived in it. My son lived in that camper for a little over a year and a half till he got his house built. And when he got his house built, he moved out. And we've had conflict. He didn't clean my camper up like it was when he moved in. And other commissioners that's on this body, they've done the same thing. They've done the same thing. They put campers beside their house, had an electric wired in, sewer and everything. But if somebody comes to my house and I don't have room to put everybody, I'll let them stay in my camper. I see nothing wrong with it. It's temporary. It's temporary. For permanent residence in a camper, I'm not for that.
Chairman,
But to get by with this sewer thing, you can put a porta potty out there and you're legal. You can set a porta potty out there in between your camper and you're legal.
Thank you, Mr. Neesmith. Mr. Walker, Najee.
You know, I've had this problem and I've dealt with it for 9 months now with a young lady in my district, okay? When we start saying that it's all they can afford, okay? Just like Mr. Naismith says, this guy's got 3 campers for his kids to live out in his yard. How many people do we have that have these campers in their backyard that they're renting out to people that are dumping the waste on the ground? They're using this for an additional income because of our housing crisis. But if we're going to say it's no different for them to live in that because of our housing problem, then how are we going to say that the people that are living in the bushes in Hamlin County, in vacant houses in Hamlin County, that are homeless, that they can't do that because they can't afford to do anything else? I mean, it's an option, okay? But we can't let people dump this on the ground. The other thing is, and I get Mr. Naismith's part. He has a camper who hooked it up. But when you put your septic in for your concession stand, the state come and said, this is how many people is going to use that bathroom. This is how much your fill lines need. They didn't factor in another house hooked up to that same septic tank that's got more waste going into it. Or somebody that hooks up 4 campers in their yard. We don't allow campers in Hamlin County. Same reason we don't allow mobile homes in residential areas. If we're going to say that in a residential zone, I can put 4 campers in my backyard for my kids to live in, why couldn't I put them in a single wide trailer in my backyard? Wouldn't you rather see your neighbor have a single wide trailer for their kids to live in than a camper? Because if that camper catches on fire, it's gone. At least with the single wide trailer, they've got an option to get out in a little bit of time. Probably not much more time, but their odds of survival is probably better. Okay? The other problem is, and this is not the only problem, when we let these people start putting these campers up everywhere, we're taking on their trash, their cleanup, everything else that they add to our county. They're not paying any taxes because we can't tax land with a camper on it because it's not a permanent dwelling. I mean, so is that fair to the other people that are living next door to them, that they're paying taxes at their rate, and I can move a camper in next door to them and I don't have to pay any more taxes? So I mean, let's be honest, I've got a vacant 2-acre lot. I can put 12 campers on there, rent them out at $200 a piece. That's $2,400 a month. My taxes on that land is only $480 a year. How much can I make by doing it? And hey, who cares if the septic goes on the neighbors next to them? I'm not living there. I mean, it states in our building code, it is unlawful to live in a dwelling that does not have an occupancy code. Okay? Yes, we do allow them to live in a camper if they're building a house. But if they're building a house, just like Mr. Naismith said, when his son built the house, it was hooked up to septic, it had water, and it was hooked up to an electric pole. When you build your house, you move your camper out of the way, you've already got your septic for your house, you've got the power for your house, you've got the water meter for your house. But most people that are building a house aren't living in a camper permanently. They're living in it temporarily while they build a house. I mean, but I've got a young girl, just like you said, it's a state thing. We went to the state issued her a fine, issued her to court. We went to our criminal court, it's a statute. Tennessee Code 39-17-102. It is unlawful to dispose of raw sewage. It is unlawful. It's a Class C misdemeanor. A $50 fine and up to 30 days in jail. That's the only fine. But you know what the problem is? Our courts here in Hamlin County won't enforce it. They say it's a civil matter. Go talk to our county attorney. Our county attorney, and I agree with you 100% on this. It is a criminal matter, should be handled in our criminal courts. But when we tell them that, hey, and I'm going to be honest, this was Judge Collins' words. I am not locking somebody up for dumping sewage on the ground. What do you think that girl did when she left the courtroom? She went right home, opened up that valve on that camper, dumped that sewage out. It run down the back of her yard, into the neighbor's yard, all over her driveway, where when her kids came out, she had to wash the driveway for her kids could get out of the car. Is that fair? Is that what we want our Hamlin County to be known at? And we're not the only county facing this. I've already been asked by other counties, what are y'all doing about your camper problem? They're looking at us to make a decision to see how do they make this work. Because it's not just happening here, it's happening all over this area.
Thank you, Mr.
We have
Walker.
campgrounds for campers, that's where campers need to be.
Anyone else? Yes, sir. There you are.
I agree 100%. I feel like that I have made a choice to live in a residence that is a house. At one point in time, I had made a choice to live in a mobile home. And it was in a mobile home park. There was rules there, and we abided by those rules. We have camping areas, we have parks that you can have your campers there, and there's rules for there. You can live there a certain amount of time, and then for whatever reason, you can't. I don't know all the rules about the campgrounds, but when you're building a house and you need a camper, I agree with that for a limited time, because I've known several people that did that, but they had sewage, they had water, they had all the rules that they had to follow by. If we don't have rules, we're going to have a mess. Exactly what you said. We're going to have a mess. So I agree that we have to have rules in place. And if we don't have the septic tanks hooked up to these campers, it's going to be a mess. So that's why there are places, there are camping areas, unless it's for a limited time while you're building a home.
But we do have those rules. It's our building codes. I'm sorry.
Wait just a second. Mr. Cutshaw?
Just to get started, the first thing, this commission past 2018 building codes, which included not, you gotta have that certificate of occupancy. So this commission then took up the idea, as it said in our resolution, the idea of allowing it with proper water, electric, and septic, and it passed. It went on, and the reason it was rescinded because it is in conflict of a previous judgment we had in 2018 building codes. Therefore, that's why that was rescinded. Just to clarify that, I want that to understood. It wasn't, we were trying to do something. I think this body has to take this up. We've got to move forward. There's so many questions. If we were to allow someone to live in an RV in some way with proper, we've got to figure out what is the answer. If you allow this to happen, then what's the answer? How do we zone this? Do they have to, they've got to live in a zone. We only allow single wide mobile homes in A1.
Correct.
Therefore, you can't have a camper in R2 or R1, or we might as well throw zoning out the window. Guys, we do this to protect our county. It's not, that's why you don't have an industrial park in your backyard. We do this zoning to protect, and okay, somebody doesn't have anything. Maybe there's another answer somewhere. I don't know this. I don't know how to go about it. If we go down this road to allow folks to live in campers, you can't do it to your neighbor, okay? You're out of zone. I would say that we look at a possibility of the county. I know this is out of the box thinking, but the county buying some land and creating a county temporary campground. It's just a thought. I know that's outside the box, but listen, you can't do it here. You can't pull up on the side of the road and start squatting. So let's do this. Let's create something where they got electric, water, and septic. Okay, you can't have septic without water, can you? Not that I'm aware of. I know it flows downhill, but you gotta wrench it too. I'm just looking at this. If we go down this road that we're gonna decide to allow folks to live in a camper that is not designed for permanent occupancy, then we need to look at how we can handle this, because there's zoning issues, there's permit issues, there's taxation issues. What's fair is fair. If this person is living on land and they're getting our services of bulk waste and door-to-door garbage pickup and a mailbox, what's the difference? We got to figure out the right answers here. I'm willing to work either way. We need to go here, but at the same time, we can't be in conflict of what we already have on our books. This is a tough question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Cutchon. Ms. Howe?
Yes, sir, thank you. I don't know about these campgrounds, but I mean, if there was a lady we were stuck on the highway for an hour and unrolled, she had a boxer, and I like boxers, so we started talking, and she lives in a campground. And she said, I have a mailbox, and she says, I drive this truck every day, and then I go home and my camper's there, and I said, well, how do you get your mail? And she said, well, I have a box at the main office. And I said, okay. And I think that's, where we're headed, kind of like what you said. She really lives in this camper, in this camping spot and has all that stuff available to her. If all we needed to do was put up the porta potty, that's a thought that hadn't occurred to me. And the other thing was, what is temporary? What if somebody said, oh my golly, next Monday I have to be out. We'll be out for 3 or 4 days. We'll go to grandma's, and then we'll move back in, and we'll start that time clock all over again. So, that's a problem with temporary, just some thoughts that haven't solved anything.
Thank you, Ms. Howe. Is anyone else? Ms. Green?
First of all, I'm like Mr. Neesmith. If that's all they can do, it's better than being under a bridge. I'll grant you, we need to find a way to take care of waste. I do know that there's portable waste as well as portable potties. Now, I don't see why we can't set up. I do realize in A1, they are allowed. I don't see why that we cannot set up to fix it where that I'm sorry.
They're not allowed in A1.
Not allowed.
All right, it's the
Single-wide
trailers.
mobile
I
home.
apologize.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Single-wide
correcting
mobile home
me.
is allowed in
I had
A1.
my mobile home on my mind. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the clarification. I messed up, but thank you. But why can we not set up, if they have electricity, if they have a way to dispose of their waste, for people to be able to live in there? And I'm not talking about a permit. I'm not talking about a campground. I'm talking about treating people like we would want to be treated. If that's all you can do, it's better than being under a bridge. We have a problem with homeless already. We don't need to add to it. Now, grant you should be a good neighbor. This putting waste on somebody else's property is unacceptable. I wouldn't want, well, I was gonna say I wouldn't want to live with it, but many years ago, before they put some rules in, I had a neighbor that did just that. And you step outside in the middle of July, and you couldn't breathe, and I'll leave it at that. So I have some firsthand knowledge of how this can work. But we need to look at alternative means to take care of these folks. We need to treat them like God said for us to. And to be honest with you, to leave them out homeless, it's just not right. If that's all they can do as a camper, we need to find a way to set forth some regulations that will help them be able to live, but to be able to go forward and be in, have something over their head, a roof, something.
Redirect,
Thank you.
redirect.
Mr. Goodson.
See, what Ms. Green is talking about, and I agree, I don't want to put anybody out and make them homeless, but at the same time, these folks that are in that position, are they going to be able to get proper hookup of water, septic, and electric? Therefore, these situations, we've got to figure out a way how we're going to help them to move, because it doesn't matter what we do, what regulation, they're still going to be in that position. I'm just saying that this is a tough answer. If we allow campers, you're opening up Pandora's box all over our county. Whatever zone it is, I can't afford. And anyway.
Well, I think we're also sitting here thinking that it's just the people that are down financially. These people, it's going to set a $65,000, $75,000 camper on a property and do it. So, Mr. McKinney, I think if you come to the podium.
May I have permission
and
before
enlighten
you,
us.
may I have permission to redirect him before you do
I've done
that?
call on Mr. McKinney.
Okay,
Come on up,
thank you,
please.
sir.
We'll get to you.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Put together a few photographs. Some of these I took today. I think a couple I took yesterday, and then some of them are older, but they're just some of the campsites. And it's actually a mishmash. We've got some that are, seem to be okay. I can explain them as we go along, and we've got some of them that, even if I was homeless, I would try to do better than this. I'm just going to say that and leave it at that, okay? Now, this is one of the ones that we allowed them to set it up while they were setting their mobile homes up. Notice there's electricity and everything going to it, and there was sewage on this one. This one is one that has been there for quite a while. It's still the same. They've not trashed it or anything like that. I mean, they keep the grass mowed and everything, but they've been there for at least, I've been doing property maintenance working for the county for 4.5 years, and it's always been, but it's still looks. This one is in a storm ditch. How it's not floated away in these rains that we have, I have no idea, but it's just sitting there in the ditch alongside the road.
Am I, and that is a, you know, those big containers.
I think that's set on blocks, camper set on blocks.
But the big,
That may be gray water.
Yeah, I think that's what she's.
okay, thank you.
I'm under the assumption
Yes, sir.
it's set. Go by Russellville Elementary, I'm sure everybody's seen this one.
Good golly.
Dear me.
Did I understand you that you took the other one that you just went off of today?
This one here.
Yes, sir.
This one, I'm sure Commissioner Walker knows about. This is one of the ones, this is actually the one that went in front of Judge Collar.
Now, go back to that picture for a minute. This is an old picture of that,
Yeah, that's an old picture.
because the grass around this camper is about 6 foot tall now.
What?
Okay? Okay?
This is an old picture of one that is across from the,
Holston Electric up on 11E.
that's an old picture. This is the one down on Old Russellville Mine. This is right beside a fall, probably 6 feet beside a fall. This is an old picture. I made this one about, there's only 2 campers there now, but there were 3 there at this time on a lot with power poles hooked up, and I saw no sewer, I saw no gray water lines coming out of any of them. So I didn't see a porta potty, but I don't know if there was one there or not. So, this one is off FEMA circle, I think. I don't know how long it's been there because I took this picture in the wintertime because I could see it in the wintertime. I think it was covered up. I didn't notice it there with the foliage. But I have been back on Route FEMA circle and it is still there. I can still see the window. But this was a better picture than anything I could have made. This one is behind your house. Back in the woods, different neighborhood, you know, your neighborhood was back in, back behind there.
Cherokee Crossing.
No, it's, yeah.
Hey, Collins.
This one is on Sulphur Springs, right close to Road Junction Road. Just being moved in. This one is on off Lakeshore, corner of Lakeshore and Kingman. This one does have sewer. This is a property owner that is building a house. So that's the way they set their camper up. This is off Silver City Road. Now, I don't know if any of y'all have seen that mess that's right up against.
I've seen it.
I know Commissioner Y'all saw it. This is one of the things, you know, if I was homeless, I would not live like that. I would not throw my trash and stuff, you know.
It's not called for
If
that.
you're homeless, at least keep your little area clean.
Amen.
You know, I mean, behind the big camper it's hideous, but I couldn't get a picture of it. This is on Mountain Road. The bottom left-hand corner of this picture, you can't see it. There's a big piece of a fence right there, but there's another one down there below it. And here is the AJ one across from the power company. Now, I took this one this morning, which I was hoping I could get more of my bulk waste in there. I don't know what they collect there, but they collect so much stuff that when they get tired of it or not going to be able to use it, it comes to the road as bulk waste. I thought I had the bulk waste in the picture a little bit better, but, you know, we being the planning commission, allow a camper to be set up when they have a permit to build a house. And when they get their CO, the camper has to be put in storage mode. CO being certificate of occupancy. In other words, they're done with the house, they can move it. So then, by our statements that we tell them with the paperwork that we give them, that it has to be put in storage. Can I answer any questions?
Tommy, I'd like you to elaborate what you are looking for. What do you expect from our commission?
Y'all know I'm the enforcement officer now. I just like to have, we just need something that me, Mr. Katz, can just, a regulation that we can just stand in front of the judge. He reads it, we read it. They are in violation. Just flat out a regulation that we can use to enforce. My job is, our county commission's job, or planning commission's job, is so much easier when everything's in black and white and not kind of thrown out there as, right now we have to use a building code. There's counties that's got, I've been told that there's counties that got a regulation against it that's that big, and it just flat out says it's not allowed. My heart goes out to people that don't have a place to stay, but, you don't have to live like this. You don't have to live like this. And when a county has regulations put in place that states a house has to have a foundation. It has to have a foundation, and there's all kinds of codes in there that states what a house is supposed to be like. HUD, a national entity, says that recreational vehicles will not and are not to be used as a permanent residence. They're not. They're for recreation only. HUD made that call a couple of years ago, I think, something like that. It's flat out cut and dry, And as a body, I know you guys are you've got a lot to do. We all got a lot to do. I got a lot to do. We've all got a lot to do. These people, if we say that they're going to have to be, they can't live in them anymore, how much time do we give them? What do we do otherwise? I don't know. But as far as my part, as the enforcement part, I need a regulation that I can use in court, to just flat out use. So, do you have anything?
I know you don't want we don't want people living in campers, and I know we have compassion for those that don't have anything else, and I know we don't want more homeless people. Having said that, there are a lot of homeless people who choose to be homeless.
That's exactly right.
And that doesn't help us any. But if you had a time frame, if a person to live in a camper was required to get a temporary permit of some sort, and I know you don't like permits either, but it said you could live there for 60 days until you found something better. After that 60-day time frame had passed, then you better be in somewhere else and not using it as a residence. Because otherwise, you've got to set a limit on how long someone can be there, because it quickly becomes a permanent residence.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be able to distinguish between what is a temporary use, like Mr. Neesmith's son, temporary, and what's becoming a permanent use, and the trash and the debris and the health. It's a very much a disease problem there, in my opinion. You're tossing sewage on the ground, and I'm startled and dismayed that we can't get a criminal statute enforced in our sessions court. I think we need to have a confab on that.
How you go about that?
Well, we've set up a meeting.
Because if they go to them and all you do is give them a $50 fine, you don't have any
Oh, I thought you were talking about setting up a conflict. Well, they're not gonna be able to pay a $50 fine if they are over and over. The $50 fine in our other codes is $50 a day. It's not just $50. $50 for every day that they're in violation. And that adds up pretty quickly.
Did I hear you say compound?
Confab.
Confab, but we have a
Confab.
confab. Somebody needs to, we need to have a discussion with our judges about
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
our need to have
Misunderstood.
effective enforcement.
Misunderstood.
Mr. McKinney, on all these pictures that you've got here, do those people own that property, or are they on somebody else's property?
That I don't know. I know the guy that owns this property, but I don't know if the people that were living there were related to him or anything like that. I do know the guy I used to work with him at Molly that owned his property. And it surprised me that he let this happen. So,
I will,
another thing, and this is another thing that I have seen and the sheriff has seen. Of course, our previous sheriff said the same thing. This house right beside of this one was involved in a major drug bust. Yes. And then probably not too, now this property still looks like this. It's grown up, but there's nobody living in it. I haven't seen anybody living in it in about probably 3 or 4 months. So I think once the drug bust happened, it wasn't long till this entity was gone.
just to interject one thing, I definitely wouldn't want my property beside of that, but as Mr. McKinney is saying, I done some research with some other counties, and it was a very large county west here. It wasn't Jeff or Knox County. I'm not going to name the county, but they had a small paragraph, and they said that was the best way to address it. If you had someone, they said, that couldn't do no better, then they directed them to other people in the county, but they said that there was no way to enforce these regulations that you would have to put in place. I know Mr. Capps has said maybe 60 days, but you're still going to have to do all the regulations for that 60 days, which would be a tremendous amount of time. Mr. Walker, you...
Okay, a couple questions, okay. One, when we talk about somebody living there permanently, okay, or temporary, if we give somebody the option to say, you can live there for 6 months or 60 days. So 60 days, we got Mr. Smith living there. 61 day, Mrs. Smith files that she wants to live there for 60 days.
Oh, my golly.
60 days later, Bubba Smith, the son, says, I'm going to live here now and be in charge of this for 60 days. And then my girlfriend's going to apply to get 60 more days. So we've just run that for almost a year now, okay? Couple other things. When we talk about this, and I asked this question the other day when we were talking about zoning, moving it from R1 to agricultural for the one to come to the commission. I said, what if we move it to R1 to A1? She could put a single wide trailer there. And you told me what? Only one dwelling per property.
Parcel, that's correct.
If we're putting campers and using them as a dwelling, it only does not go against our building codes on what a home should be. Now we have 2 dwellings, 3 dwellings, 4 dwellings. If you don't think that we're not going to have people that are going to see this as an advantage to go home, pull up Facebook, count how many campers you can buy out there for under $5,000. I can fill up my 2 acres and rent them out and say, you can live here for 60 days, then you have to move from that camper to this camper. You can live here for 60 days, because that's a whole different dwelling. Okay? And make a fortune. And people are doing it right now. Yes, we have people that are in hardship that are taking advantage of other people. But, Tommy, let me ask you this. 1 year ago, when this came to the commission, how many camper problems did we have in Hamlin County?
68, I think, I remember that, 68 or 69, that I have documents.
Right.
That's not ones that I probably have
Right. How many do we have now?
Probably about 10 more than that.
If not more? Okay, my other question, how many of these people came to the zoning board or come down here and asked our building codes?
Probably the
Can I put a camper in my lot?
say the ones that we're building the house.
That's right, that's the only ones.
I have had phone calls from people asking, you know, what's your camper situation? How can I move down there? And I tell them, you know, it's
Okay.
not recommended. We
Now,
don't, you know, that,
In our building codes, can I put a tiny home on my lot? Okay? So I can build a tiny house and live in a small house and have water hookup, sewer hookup, insulated walls, central heat and air, just like a small home. Very reasonably. But I can't do that. But I can live in a $1,500 camper and nobody's gonna say anything. That's our problem. And it's not a problem of what we let these people do. It's all gonna come down to two people. Our county attorney helping our county enforce it. And just like our county attorney says, us talking to the judge and saying, these are the rules, this is what our county's decided on, and them enforcing our building codes and our rules to say, it's not allowed. Why do we have this big problem of homeless people in Hamlin County? Because our county allows us to let them come here and live like this. And if you don't think that a lot of these homeless people are not coming from Knox County and other counties to Hamlin County, you're kidding yourself, because they are. These people
All right.
are not Hamlin County residents.
Thank you, Mr.
When
Walker.
people find out we're gonna have campers and allow it, we're gonna have more people coming in with campers.
Ms. Green, recognize you.
It wasn't me, I thought.
Well, I said I would come back to you. You had a question, or
He
is it
answered-
about this?
He answered it, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Neesmith?
This is a picture of, that was in the book of all the different campers. So how many more have you got now than you didn't
I
have?
think there's probably about 10 more. I've not updated that one since.
Are they still there, or are they gone? Some of them gone?
Yeah, I think some of them are gone. I have not updated that recently.
Do they own the property these campers are
Now
on?
that I can't tell you. I mean, you know,
If-
I can't.
If I own property and I let people put up these junk holes, which is, that's what these pictures you show up here are, that's nothing but a junk pile.
Right.
Isn't it up to the landowner to take care of that? If he don't take care of it, isn't there a citation he can be?
That would be for the property maintenance for the waste or anything like that. When there's a camper on it in our office, it's a different situation. Because we don't, right now, we do not have a regulation that regulates campers.
How do these
So
pic,
we
how
can't
these,
address the bulk waste issue because there's campers sitting on it as well.
how these pictures you showed, I saw about 3 places where they had they had, septic systems. Is that about the average? Everybody else is using the tanks and then emptying them?
Right. Well, I have seen 1 or 2 porta potties. I have seen that.
You have
But
seen the
now,
porta potty.
I'm not allowed on the property, but a lot of them are close enough to where you can look and you don't see a gray water line or a sewage line or anything like that.
Does anybody have any more questions for Mr. McKinney?
I have one more statement.
Okay, go ahead.
One of the things that our office deals with, and one of these pictures that I showed you was on Mountain Road. Okay. There was a guy come in, he got his septic permit, which was $500. He had his perk test and all that done, and I'm not sure how much that costs. Put a double wide on the property, which was $350 plus the setup and all that. So he's got roughly $1,000 just setting that mobile home on his property. He comes to our office and asks us why he had to go through all of those fees and everything to place his double-wide mobile home on his property when 100 yards up the hill from him, there's 2 people living in campers, and they're not even paying any taxes on their residence. You know what we answered to him? Nothing. There's nothing we could say. And I'm not asking for sympathy from this board because of that. I'm just letting y'all know what the reality of this stuff is. People are out there saying, why do I have to come in and abide by the rules and regulations like I'm supposed to and do what a responsible citizen's supposed to do. And then you all, that's the way they say it, you all are letting this happen over here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Green?
Let me tell y'all one thing that you probably don't know. We have, by using the building inspector, Mr. Chase, and using our current building code, we have on 2 or 3 occasions, or possibly 4 or 5, I think more like 4 or 5 occasions, we got the people who were living in RVs and a couple of campers, we got a ruling on that they could no longer do that. That was from Judge Snyder. That was probably that was before the pandemic, actually. But just to say, it can be used, but it is very cumbersome to say, oh, you can't live in that camper because you don't have a certificate of occupancy or you don't have a foundation. We need to have something better than that. But that's what we did. I mean, we did use it successfully, but who knows whether we can do so again with this different judges.
Would you happen to have a direct recommendation to this body?
I don't, Mr. Cutshaw. It is a problem. It's a problem in my area, out on Cherokee Drive, that has been. The combination of interests, the compassion for somebody who has nothing, and then the idea that we don't want people being burned up for one thing, and we don't want neighbors having sewage on the ground, and we don't want trash, and we don't want drug dealers, and we want people to pay their taxes, and all these considerations, that's all got to be, rolled around in the ball and see which comes out on top. I think Mr. Walker has made his opinion pretty well known, and I respect his opinion on that. And it's one of the toughest things that this county has to deal with, obviously right now. But as far as my, like I said, I think some type of a period, but it opens so many doors. It opens so many doors to abuse. It's difficult. I think you got to come up with some very, maybe widen the guideline that we have that you can build a house and be in a camper for a period of time. How do you expand that just a little bit to allow for something a little bit different that you can enforce, that you can maintain vigilance over without Mr. McKinney having to have 5 deputies to try to run down? I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you, Mr.
A lot
Gaddis.
smarter men than me will.
Ms. Howe?
Yes, sir. Now, I don't know a lot about these things, but you said something about a foundation. What if, we either stop it like Mr. Walker said, or this just keeps growing. What if we said, if you own that property and you start a foundation and you set it and you're not going to move it anymore and you do all the hookup and all of that, would that work? I keep thinking back, I have a niece who runs a campground or an RV or whatever, and she lives in one. I mean, that is her permanent residence, and she's the manager of that whole thing. Now, cannot we say, look, we happen to know, Mr. Jaco, that there happens to be a slot at campground blah, 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 and if you get it there, or you can go live there. I'm to the point of where we need to say that's 70 people, or say 100, we're saying sorry. We're saying sorry, it won't work here with our, with the rules we have in Hamlin County.
And one more thing about the tiny homes, I understand that they are now being manufactured and inspected by engineers, and they now have serial numbers just like a mobile home. So they could in fact be placed if they had enough land, if we had a piece of property that would take it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Green, excuse
I
me.
have a question for the attorney, if you don't care. Do we have any laws set in place right now, I said laws, that will cover this?
Does the county
Yes.
have any ordinance or regulation that will cover
Tennessee
it?
code, do we have any laws that would presently come into play?
Well, like I said just a second ago, Ms. Green, the building code, the International Building Code that this body adopted several years ago, says you've got to have a place that could get a certificate of occupancy. And we don't issue those to campers. So, and you've got to have a foundation, and as Hal's saying, talk about, well, when you build a foundation under a camper, it's still not up to the International Building Code. It hadn't been electrically inspected, the insulation may be flammable formaldehyde that's gonna go up in
Yeah.
5 seconds.
But technically, do we have a law? Years ago, Planning and Commission passed a law that a rule that we had to have trees to block things off in the field. I was one of the recipients of the letter that said I was gonna get a $50 a day fine if we didn't put the trees in. Then they found out it was illegal and they couldn't do it. So my question is, do we have anything in the present TCA that gives us teeth to do something? I mean, you're an attorney, if anybody would know, you would.
We can adopt regulations and ordinances, this body can, and it becomes our ordinance or regulation to enforce. As far as the Tennessee Code annotated, there's nothing that addresses these issues here.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know if we had a TCA code that gave teeth to do something about it.
And
Thank you.
I also spoke with CTAS about this probably back about a year ago when we were looking at that language that we were trying to nail down, and they said this is territory unexplored, and that we can adopt resolutions or ordinances that can regulate and enforce. That's it.
Okay.
Nothing in Tennessee Code about it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Capps. I think that if we look under new business, then what this committee needs to look at is our definition of the recreational vehicle and camper. And then we need to make a decision of what we're going to do as a body. If you've got does everybody have this that was handed out?
Yeah.
If you'll go to the third page, this was the definition of our recreational vehicle. It was adopted by the Planning Commission, and I think it is, with the ones I've looked at from other counties, this is a very comparable. Mr. McKinney, have you looked at that? Would anybody like to address that issue? Ms. Howe?
Yes, sir. You know, it seems to sum it up what we, you know, they have to have the building permit. And just like you mentioned, our attorney mentioned that, you know, if that's step one and they don't have that occupancy and then the building permit, then it's kind of a no-go, if I'm reading that right.
Mr. Cutshaw,
Yes.
you was on this committee.
I was on this committee, and we, in the planning commission, we researched this. This is what we came back with as far as the definition of a recreational vehicle. I mean, it's pretty simple. We're not redefining the word by any stretch of the imagination. It's pretty bold and black and white what a recreational vehicle is. We all know what it is. No, the county commission, well, actually, the county commission did accept this. No, wait a minute, hold on.
The county commission sent a resolution, but it was rescinded
Yes.
on August the 3rd.
Yeah. I'm confused on that part.
Rodney?
Go ahead, Mr. Walker, while we're there.
Do you think that, and I'm reading this out, that we've got, tow behind car, they may be self-propelled by motor, towed behind car, truck, mounted upon the truck, commonly include travel trailers, tow behind campers, truck campers, and motorhomes. Do you think now that it is a big thing right now that people are converting buses into campers, that we include the word also as bus campers?
That's a good idea.
Because you're gonna run into that problem that if I buy a bus from you at the bus garage, I make it into a camper, it's not considered an RV. It's considered a bus. So, I mean,
Well, I would think that the broad range of structural vehicles designed as temporary quarters, would that not cover that? I wasn't in this meeting, Mr. Petjold.
that may be
you
a
were.
question for Chris.
I don't recall that being discussed,
The
which,
bus possibly being an RV,
yeah.
I mean, I think you probably need to cover that base.
Yeah.
And say a bus cannot be, you can't live in a bus just like you can't live in an RV. I mean, by living in it, you're converting it ipso facto to an RV, aren't you?
Yeah.
As our attorney then, could we add that verbiage as, and/or converted, any other vehicle converted for temporary living?
I mean, you could just, obviously, now we're getting into the question of whether somebody could live in their car, and they don't have anywhere else to live, and we've already talked that out, I think. Where do you stop when you talking about something with wheels on it? We could come up with some language that would, there's always gonna be something that's gonna fall
Right.
through the cracks.
And there's always a way to amend a resolution as well as we move forward.
You can come back every month and
Yeah.
amend it every month if
Yeah.
you want.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. So, that said, that's why I feel comfortable with this, but if we need to amend, as Commissioner Walker had brought that point out, we can do that.
I will read one from another county. Recreational vehicle is defined as a travel trailer, motorhome, camping trailer, or other similar vehicle which is occupied temporarily for recreation, travel, and vacation purposes. And that's their definition of it.
It's pretty vague, but it's pretty all-encompassing, isn't it?
It is all encompassing, so I just want to throw it out there. Is anyone else?
I had a lady who, not in my district, but anyway, she said, Peggy, please come out and look at, next to my house. And she had a lovely house, and then there was this yard. Not quite like that, but, and I'm thinking, and she said, I can't sell my house. And I said, I understand that now, what you're up against, because there was a camper or mobile home in there, and I don't think it was occupied, and then there was all the other stuff, and, it made me realize that, this is a matter of just being good neighbors. If everybody were good neighbors, there wouldn't be, as he showed us the stuff out there at the edge of the road, there wouldn't be this, and, but I also realize we have folks that are, we don't want them under a bridge, but we are affecting the taxpayers here. We are affecting, by not doing anything. We're affecting the property owners, and unless we find a spot where we can say, this is where you can park this, then,
Well, I think this committee is going to have to make a decision on the definition of it.
Yes, sir.
Can we
and then make the decision, are we going to allow them or not? It's pretty black and white.
Yes.
I don't know the verbiage, but can we not make a motion or an agreement, whatever you want to call it, that we recognize this verbiage that's already in place, recreational vehicle? Can we not use this that's already there?
One thing to consider tonight, we've got 8 members here. We may want to discuss this and bring it back at another,
I'd feel better if everybody,
Sure.
more people was here. Mr. Horner?
I'm just gonna say, Commissioner Howell was talking about, we don't want people on the bridge, but as it's been said already, there's people who wanna be under that bridge.
Yes, sir, they do.
And you can't help, some people don't wanna be helped.
Well,
And-
yeah.
May I also say, because it sounds like when we're talking like this, we don't have a heart, and that's not it at all.
No.
I would gladly go with you, Commissioner Howe, to any of these people and say, hey, you may not know, you may not be aware, we have a place, camping ground, that you can
Yeah.
legally do this.
Yeah.
And if this is not good for you, we have an area called MATS that helps people who are down on their luck, and your children can live with you. We'll be happy to help you with that. We also have housing, public housing.
Right.
We'll be happy to help you with that. And I would not be opposed. I'd be one of those that goes knock on that door.
Yeah.
Because I do have a heart. But like you said, we have to think about that 60,000 people. This is a decision of 60,000 people
Yeah.
who are not like this. So we have to think for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I think tonight, Mr. McKinney presented to us a little more problem than what I actually thought we had. It's kind of enlightened me some. But this is an issue that we are going to have to address.
absolutely.
It can't be kicked on down the road, because all we do is make it harder on the enforcement person. And I think to be fair, we need most everybody here to do this. And it will give us a time, if we table it, bring it back, and we make sure that everybody is on
That's
this.
right.
I'd like
No,
to see
there's
all
absolute-
14 members, or a member of the committee, I'd like to see all 14 participate.
Well, all 14 may not be here, but yet, and we don't need to table, we just no action tonight, and we'll bring it back in our next committee meeting.
If you all have any kind of new questions you want to present, we will come back and answer those when we meet again.
Commissioner Long,
Yes,
may I, sir?
yes.
What about if we checked with some of the surrounding counties? I think what you did was fantastic. But I'd like to know what Jefferson County has in place. I'd like to know what Greene County has.
I
I
can
can
tell
reach
you.
out to a commissioner.
I can tell you.
I'm
they
sorry?
The problem there, Ms. Green, is the counties that's around us has got this problem.
Yeah,
The
but
counties out further have addressed it.
I'd just like to see what they've got, if that would be agreeable with everybody.
Whatever they say, it don't make any difference. We live
Well,
in
that's
Hamilton
true.
County.
We still gotta do something.
Mr. Mayor.
Just to address that issue, I had lunch with 3 surrounding county mayors on last Friday, and this topic was discussed, and these counties don't have anything to address.
Okay.
They're rural counties, but they don't have anything, and they're struggling with this issue as well. And one thing too is, as you contemplate where you want to go, I think in the last page of your packet that you got, these were the issues that planning presented when that recreational vehicle definition was passed. So, and these questions is why it was rescinded. And so if you'll just, as you think through this, look at these questions
And, okay, if you pass it, when you pass a definition, then start thinking about answering these questions, like what zones and that kind of thing. So, and they weren't answered last time. And so what this needs to be done is a package, you know, so, I just want to bring that to your attention.
Thank you.
Rodney, I just got one last thing.
Ms. Walker.
And I want everybody here, the commissioner, to understand. I agree with Chris. We need to have all the commissioners here. And if we can bring this to our next committee meeting and come up with something, I think that's a great thing to do. All I'm asking for, and it's not that I don't have compassion for any of these people in this situation, but I have seen the first hands of this from somebody in my district crying for help over and over again that has went to every avenue that she can. She has called our state representatives, she has called our senators, she's called our governor, everybody she can. And she had hopes that when we went to court, she was going to get some type of relief for her and her children. And it didn't happen. We've got to make a decision, and like I said before, we're making tough decisions. But we've got to make a change which is best for our county. And that's what I want you to think about. Is that picture what we want our county to look like?
Thank you, Mr. Walker. I will want to address our TCCA regional meeting is September the 28th in Knoxville, Tennessee at 5:30. I think there's only 4 commissioners that have signed up for it, so you need to be thinking about and seeing if you can clear your calendar for this meeting. Your books are ready. You can pick them up if you're not already done so. They are ready for next Thursday's meeting. I'd just like to say, everybody in this room has compassion for people. But the one thing we need to remember, we represent all of the people of Hamilton County. So that decision will have to be based on that. All minds clear? We're joined.